I'm going to talk to you about the Living Planet Index today. This is a tool that WWF uses as a communication tool, but that we produce at ZSL in an independent sort of manner. I'm going to talk to you particularly about how the trends that we show from the Living Planet Index might start to impact humans over the coming year. This is a fairly typical graph. This particular one from the Millennium Ecosystem Assessment shows you species extinction way back in time. This is the rate of the y-axis, and you can see relatively low rates of extinction. If we look at more recent extinctions, the historic past, we start to see much more elevated rates of species extinction over time. And our future modelled approaches show us vastly different rates to what we see in background history or historic times. Between 1,000 and 10,000 times that which we would expect naturally. The causes of these are well known. Human habitation, urbanisation reduces available land mass to animals. Overexploitation takes healthy individuals out of populations. Naive species are impacted by invasive alien species, and these break down ecological networks. Increasingly, we start to see climate change as an impact on species as well. This is now considered so important that under the Convention on Biological Diversity, the world's governments have got together, almost all governments, 191 of them now, and they've committed themselves to achieve, by 2010, a significant reduction in the rate of biodiversity loss at every scale that we can measure it at. But measuring extinction is a really blunt tool. What the Living Planet Index shows us, and I'll show you this now, is that it's the reduction in abundance of very widespread species that's much more important to us. The loss of the last few individuals, or a few hundred individuals of very rare species, has really quite small impacts on an ecosystem. The Living Planet Index was started in 1997, as I said, as a communication tool for WWF. We're a communication conference, so this is produced in 12 different languages. It's distributed all over the world. They do amazing things with communication that we can't hope to do it at ZSL. And the next one's out on Wednesday. And what it shows is, over a time period where human population has almost doubled, we've seen a 30% reduction in the number of individuals of species on our globe. Around a 30% decline. And we can see that across all different systems. It's the same in terrestrial systems, it's worse in freshwater systems, and it's worse in terrestrial systems in the marine systems. Just by way of comparison, this is the human population growth rate over that time. If you look at this map, this is the world's countries rescaled to their growth rate. So some examples that you can see, very high rates of growth in India, and in China as well, comparatively much smaller rates of growth in certain South American countries. And biodiversity is not evenly distributed. The red patches on this map show the areas where most threatened mammals are. The dark blue patches, areas where least are. And you can see, as you all know, there's a real aggregation of species in the tropics. And when we look at the impact on species abundance in those places, we see that human impact on species isn't evenly distributed either. So in tropical systems, we see much greater rates of decline, up to 50% decline in tropical systems. That matters because tropical systems have more species to lose, more individuals to lose than those in temperate systems. Over this 35-year period, impact in temperate systems has been relatively stable. But of course, if we were able to track this back to the 1900s, 1800s, we'd see a massive decline to that point. Does this matter? There are a number of different lines of evidence now drawn from across different studies that are starting to point to the fact that we're losing once common species. This graph is from BirdLife International and RSPB. It shows a wild bird index for the common species. They're only looking at common species here. This isn't affected by rare species. Losses at the top, forest systems, right at the bottom, farmland systems, and for all species that they've monitored across Europe. And we're seeing rates of decline that are pretty comparable, minus 44%, the loss of 44% of individuals on farmlands A second line of evidence, it goes without saying that if you fish species out of the sea, or individuals out of the sea, you're going to depress the biomass there. But what's important in the collapse of some of the global fish stocks is the way in which we've improved our technology and upped our fishing effort. And in areas such as the Grand Banks and some of the Peruvian anchovy populations, we've seen almost total collapse of fish stocks. That clearly has an impact on the humans that use them, and means that we actually end up fishing down the food chain. And a final example in the UK common moth species have declined by something like 2/3 over a 35-year period. And we can link these declines straight back to the farmland bird populations. And we can also link declines in plants directly to some of these moth populations. So we can see that the impact is being felt right the way across the system. Why does this matter for humans? Intact ecosystems provide ecosystem services. These are the things that we benefit from. We can think of water purification, provisioning, flood defences, crop pollination, carbon storage, all of these things that we benefit from that we don't pay the cost for. As we start to remove abundant species from these systems, we compromise the ability of these systems to provide those services for humans. And linking it right back up to the top level now, the Conventional Biological Diversity 2010 target has been adopted by the United Nations Millennium Development Goals. It's now part of UN MDG number 7. There are 9 of them. They're incredibly worthy, good things. They've been referred to as the sort of the hopes for the world governments as to what happens on the planet. Things like improving literacy, eradicating poverty and hunger. Number 7 is ensuring environmental sustainability. What we're going to start seeing over the next year or so is that we can't achieve any of the other of these goals of the United Nations without ensuring a sustainable environment. Those other goals actually rely on the services that biodiversity provides for these people. So the challenge for conservation is big. We still monitor a very small subset of species. We only really look at vertebrates. Can anyone think of a protist monitoring program out there? I don't think there are any. So seeing whether what we measure in these vertebrate species is really indicative of the majority of biodiversity is a real challenge for scientists and something that we have to address. Looking at the way these things are put together, if we can do that, then we can start to move this way along this axis from just observing extinctions, monitoring declining populations, through to getting more predictive about it and starting to manage populations more effectively, which has to be the ultimate goal. Whether or not we'll achieve the 2010 target, which delivers in around a year now, year and a half, well, the simple answer is no. But if we start to understand how the components of biodiversity provide services for humans, we can construct a more persuasive argument to bring these aspects of biodiversity into the consciousness of people and start to design better targets for the future. Thank you.